Welcome back, everybody, to yet another episode of Big Apple Hockey. I hope you guys aren't tired of us yet with all the different broadcasts we've been doing lately. And this is one we've had in the works for a little bit because the news keeps changing, but glad to finally talk about it and do a New York Islanders wrap-up show. I, of course, am your host, Mark Williams. Delighted to be doing this again and maybe talking about a Long Island guy going number one, but joined by the host of the Final Buzzer, Mr. John Fulkowski.
Yeah, this is a pretty interesting time if you're an Islander fan. With that said, got to throw it over to the man in the panel here who's covering things on the island for us, Mr. Anthony LaRocco.
Yep, from the Hockey News, Mr. Anthony LaRocco.
Yeah, Matthew Darche got officially introduced today as introductory press conference, sitting at the table alongside John Collins. So it was nice to hear from him for the first time. And his work, it already officially started, but now that he's been introduced, I think, he's going to get to work here shortly and announce some new organizational hirings. But yeah, it's exciting time to be an Islander fan. Draft about a month out, so we'll see what transpires.
With Darth Vader.
Yeah, you know what? Darth Vader keeps slipping my mind, and I'm actually kind of annoyed that I keep forgetting that. I got the Jar Jar thing from Misa. So, wow, that would be even worse, Phil. That would be Darth Vader and Jar Jar Misa. So that would just right there. All right, everybody, make sure you're hitting that subscribe button for us as well as the like button. Make sure you are smashing that as we are growing our channel repeatedly with several different broadcasts. Who knows? We might be back on here tomorrow morning, talk about the Stanley Cup Finals. And let's get to the A block, where we will be discussing the New York Islanders and their season wrap-up show. This is for them. And, of course, use the promo code Big Apple Hockey, $20 off your first order from SeatGeek. The Islanders missed the playoffs for the 500 season, 35-35-12, 82 points. Their highest point of the season, maybe you guys could disagree with me on this, was when they won 7 in a row. We're knocking on the door of the playoffs. But then after missing the playoffs, trades, injuries, a whole lot of things went wrong. Some things went right. And what went right, the rightest, is May 2nd when they won the draft lottery. Anthony, what are your thoughts? First, we're going to go with the season, the 24-25 season for the New York Islanders.
It was a season. It was a season that started off with a lot of hope. They didn't make a lot of change, but they brought in Anthony Duclair, who had been a 20-25 goal guy. They thought we had speed to the top line with Barzal and Horvat. Noah Dobson was coming off a 70-point season. Barzal was coming off a year in which he got back to being, close to what he was in his rookie year, where I believe he notched 80 points again. So there was good, there were definitely good vibes, good feelings. And to start the year off, Duclair had like 3 points in his first 5 games. The line looked good. And then, he suffered that groin injury. And then shortly after, Barzal got hurt. Dobson got hurt. And, stuff just kind of slowly started to unravel for the Islanders. And they couldn't really find their footing again. Up until the point so Barzal came back. He came back, and then the last game of that winning streak, Mark, he got hurt in Tampa Bay. And then he was out ever since. And coincidentally, after he got hurt, the winning streak, subsided, and the team was basically just up and down, and they tried to scratch and claw to stay in the playoff race. There were a couple of games there later in the year where if they would have won, they would have jumped into a playoff spot, but each one of those games, one of them was against Vancouver. Another one was against Tampa Bay. They failed to win, and Montreal just kind of pulled away. So a year that certainly was disappointing. Matthew Darche actually today in his press conference, when he was asked about the Islanders and how soon they can be a perennial playoff team, he said, in my opinion, he's like they should have been a playoff team last year. So again, it was one of those things where I think it was kind of a perfect storm of stuff that went wrong. And then, on top of that, Lou Lamoriello didn't make enough changes in the offseason. I referenced he picked up Duclair, which is fine, but they needed more. And he didn't do it. And maybe that's the reason why he's, out of a job right now. So definitely a disappointing year. But you try to look for silver linings, and I think the obvious one here is they were gifted the first overall pick. They won the draft lottery, and that can change the fortune of an organization, especially if the player you take you hit on, and you're looking at a future cornerstone of the franchise. So that and the trade deadline edition of Callum Ritchie, Cole Eiserman's play, not only at BU and how he performed in the playoffs, but at the World Juniors. And he's certainly excited the fan base. So, now all of a sudden you have these pieces in place. You have a new general manager coming in, fresh face, that's going to make changes. And, things are actually looking up after a disappointing year. So, certainly sucked they missed the playoffs. You never want to miss the playoffs, but ultimately, maybe it was a blessing in disguise. So, now we turn the page to the off season, and Darche has some work to do for sure.
Yeah, we're going to get more on that in 1 second. Phil, what were your thoughts when you think back on last season for the New York Islanders?
I think it was a bit of a wake-up call for me personally, and some might disagree, but I think that this was a season that really showed you that it's time for changes on the island. It really is. I think they need to start getting away from some of the guys that have been injured. I'm looking at Ryan Pulock and Adam Pelech, and I would gauge the trade market to see what their value is, what you can get for them. I would put an emphasis on the future of this team. Now that you have a new regime coming in with a younger mindset and a fresher mentality, I think this is really the time to start making some changes. You've seen that this core that they have in place hasn't been good enough to win. You added Bo Horvat, and Bo Horvat's a nice addition, but Bo Horvat's not putting you over the top. Not that anybody expected him to do so, but the general consensus, the idea was that you were going to add to this core, and adding Bo Horvat could get you closer or one step further in the direction that you wanted to go, which was towards a Stanley Cup. I don't see a Stanley Cup with this core, and I think this year was a wake-up call. It's funny because both teams in New York, it's the same thing. This season has to be a wake-up call for both of them. And I think with the Islanders, it's time to start getting away from a lot of the older guys. Explore what you can get for John Gabriel Pageau. I thought they should have traded Kyle Palmieri at the deadline. I thought they could have gotten a nice return for him, considering the return they got for Brock Nelson. Maybe Anders Lee's name comes up. He's got 1 year left on his deal. I know he might not want to leave because he has very strong ties to not only the team and the organization, but the community here as well. But these are guys that I would really start taking a look at. They have a bunch of restricted free agents, and Noah Dobson, Alex Romanov, Scott Perunovich, which I don't know what they're going to do with him, and Adam Boquist, who really kind of had a very minor role with them. But you also have unrestricted free agent Tony DeAngelo. Do you bring him back? Semyon Varlamov has got 2 years left on his deal, but he's getting up there in age, and he missed a lot of time this year. So for me, I would have a focus on getting younger. I think this is the perfect time to do it. I think you could get some assets still for the guys that you have. If you continue to wait, that value depreciates. Mayfield. I could see keeping Scott Mayfield around, just because I do think that he's still a decent defenseman, and considering that his cap hit isn't crazy for what he is. I still think I do agree with Atlas. I think there is value in Mayfield. I would rather move Pelech or Pulock, see what you can get for one of them, and if you can get a good return, then pull the trigger and really start transitioning in the direction of building up your team for the future, because You got a top prospect for Brock Nelson. And now you're going to
Mhm.
add another top prospect with either first overall pick or whatever they do with that, whether they're trading down, whatever the case may be. You're adding another prime asset for the future. I mean, make a move towards it. I understand that there are some things that are not changing, which we'll talk about in a bit.
Yep.
But I think this is the time to make changes towards this roster.
Got to agree with that. I think this was one of those seasons that when we did our NHL preview and our Islanders season preview at the very beginning of the year, one of the questions and concerns that I had was this was a team that usually spread out their talent throughout their lineup, and their bottom six was always one I thought really made the real impact on the game, even more so than their top six, even though the top six was talented. This time they were sort of, I thought they were going into the season, I thought they were sort of heavy on their top six. And then they had a great preseason with Anthony Duclair. Take what you will out of that. But Barzal goes down. Then it was Duclair goes down. Then, Sipakov had that snipe on opening night. You're like, maybe this guy, maybe they caught lightning in a bottle. He only ended up with 10 goals. I think it was 35 points on the season. He looked good at times. I thought the suspension that he got hit with mid-season was unfair. It was only 2 games, but still. I don't know if it's that he's having a little transition issue from the KHL over the NHL. We'll see about that. The real thing, and I'm going to eventually direct this question to you, Anthony, but the Islanders ended up just having everything go wrong on defense. They used 13 defensemen last year. Wow. I mean, we could talk about the things that went right, like Alexander Romanov, and Tony DeAngelo was a bit of a surprise. Adam Boquist was a bit of a surprise. Isaiah George looked good, I thought, when he was up here, and Scott Perunovich wasn't bad. Wow, 13 defensemen. That is just such an astronomical number. Ilya Sorokin looked a little bit better, but you look at the defense he was behind compared to, say, the guy across the river. I mean, he has a reason to actually complain, and his number has actually improved from last year, except his goals against. So let's get with this, Anthony. State of the New York Islanders. Like, what are they now that they've named Matthew Darche the GM and Patrick Waugh, he announced, will stay as head coach?
I mean, what are they in what context?
Like going forward, what are you looking at them with? Like, there's a lot more hope for this season. Right?
Yeah, I mean, they're certainly they're a team in transition. They're going to be going through changes, and like I said, Matthew Darche is going to put his own stamp on the team. They're Phil alluded to a lot of the veteran players that were there from Lou's era and Garceau, like Pollock, and it's time to move on from some of them. So, I think that when you're looking at the team, Darche wants to compete right away, which he's going to, but he's also going to move some of those guys that have been here for a long time to make room on the roster for younger, faster, better players. So when you look at Ryan Pollock, he's got a full no trade clause. He married a girl from Long Island last summer. So for him, asking him to move, it's certainly possible, but I think it'll be easier to move Adam Pelech because Adam Pelech has a modified 16-team no trade list. So I think when you're choosing between the two, I think Pelech would be the guy to go. At the forward position, I certainly think that JG Pageau, whose name has been out there for the better part of 2 years now, I think that he's certainly a candidate to be traded. Scott Mayfield, as Atlas mentioned, he's valued for a third pair of D, which is true, but there's a possibility that Darche might bite the bullet and buy out his contract. Same thing with Engvall. That's a possibility. Anders Lee, I don't know. He's got 1 year left. He is coming off a rebound year, which he scored close to 30 goals. I think he's likely going to stay. I would be surprised if Lee is traded. Darche mentioned actually today that he already sat down and met with Lee and had a meal and stuff. So I would imagine Lee is going to be in the plans. But yeah, other than that though, I really don't think there's anybody that Darche looks at on this team as be like I'm not trading. So there's going to be a lot of turnover. I think he's going to inject some youth into the lineup. Cole Eiserman, he hasn't really stated his intention if he's going back to BU or not. I'm assuming that's something Darche probably already touched base with him on. And Darche will probably confer with the Islanders scouts who have been there and say, does this kid need more time, or can we bring him on board? But that's a possibility. I think Danny Nelson, is going to go back to Notre Dame, which I don't see a problem with. I think another year there won't hurt him. Quinn Finley opened up a lot of eyes this year at Wisconsin. It looks like he could be a pretty good player. He's already going back there for sure. So, and then you have Callum Ritchie, which Callum Ritchie has nothing left to play for in junior. He's going to be on the Islanders roster. Maybe even as a 3C. If they trade Pajot, he might play in the third line center position. And he's going to be a very good player. I saw this comment earlier from Wicked, and no offense, you're really the only one. A lot of the consensus is Richie's going to be a solid 2C in this league. The OHL just selected him as in the Eastern Conference, the best stick handler. And then there was another award he won too. I don't know which one it was. But Callum Ritchie is going to be a very good player in this league, and I think he's going to be given every opportunity by Darche to play a decent sized role. So, So Mark, right, the state of the Islanders right now, I think it's certainly a transition period. It's an exciting one at that, being that they have the first overall pick. And they also have, around $28 million in cap space to play with. I know, you have to re-sign Dobson, Simon Holmstrom, but they'll have a little bit of money to work with, especially if they move guys like Pajot, Polak, Pellick. That'll just make it go up. So, it's gonna be a off season of a lot of change. Lou Lamoriello, before he got fired, he kind of even promised that when he said that there was going to be changes off season. So, I think Islander fans are finally looking at an off season where there's going to be more than one transaction. But yeah, it's an exciting time. And, the one guy I forgot to touch on is I'm actually really intrigued by, Phil mentioned his name, but Kyle Palmieri. There were the reports that Lou and him were pretty close on a deal, like almost to the point it was like a handshake agreement. I'm very curious to see if Matthew Darche is going to, get that across the finish line and sign that deal, or if he has a different viewpoint. Palmieri, while he may be 30, 33 or so, but, he's still a guy that, whether it's on the Islanders or another team, probably safe to say he'll reach 25, goals. So if they do bring him back, that's nothing to sneeze at. But at the same time, again, you want to get younger. So I am really curious to see which direction that goes in, if they decide they're going to bring him back or not. If they do bring him back, I would imagine he'll slot in on the second line. But yeah, no, a lot of questions to be answered. But certainly there's reason for, optimism.
Yeah, and certainly I don't think if there's a handshake agreement, you want to go back against what Lou has set up. Secondly, I'm looking forward to actual contract announcements as soon as they happen, because we didn't get them for the last for the entire life of this YouTube channel. Phil, you look at the New York Islanders. What is the state of the New York Islanders to you right now?
Kind of what I was going. Well, that's what I would want to do. What I think is, I really don't have an answer for you, because we don't know what Darche is going to do as of this moment. We don't know where he's going to go. Does he honor, that supposed or alleged handshake agreement that Palmieri had with Lou? I don't know. I don't know how different he's going to be from Lou Lamoriello in terms of every aspect of how he runs teams. I imagine, like I said, he would bring in a younger and a fresher mindset. If I had to venture a guess, I'm gonna say that they're gonna start transitioning towards being a younger team and with an emphasis on building their future up. But I definitely don't see them in the status quo. I mean, when we look at the fact that he gave Patrick Waugh, another chance, I would say that he's probably just trying to see what he can do and seeing what he has in Patrick Waugh, because I don't think he's really had a chance to kind of view him up close and personal, if you will, and take a look at his work. Obviously, you can take a look at the results and everything, but it's different when you're there and you're watching over this guy. It's kind of like being a supervisor at a job and watching over your employees and watching what they do. And when you're a new supervisor coming in and not being familiar with the employees and how they operate on a daily basis, I think Darche wants to get that under wraps, and then he'll probably make his decision on Waugh. Like if Waugh struggles with this team this year and there's not a lot of injuries and they don't make the playoffs, then I mean I would imagine Patrick Waugh's probably out at that point. But I think Darche wants to at least give him a chance to see what he can do and see what he has in Patrick Waugh and see how the players are with him. Because let's face it, sometimes it's not the coach that's at fault, as we've seen in Midtown or in Manhattan, whatever you want to call it. Sometimes it's the general manager that just doesn't do the job the right way, doesn't construct the right team, give the coach the right players to be able to win. And as Anthony has shared his frustrations in the past with Lou Lamoriello, and we've criticized him as well, Lou Lamoriello hasn't done a good job of putting a great team together on the island. This has been a team that has been a perennial first round exit for his tenure outside of outside of
his first 3 seasons.
Yeah, really, like after the first 3 seasons, they've been a first round exit every year, or they haven't made the playoffs. And two of those consecutive appearances came at the hands of the Carolina Hurricanes. And you could say, oh, well, the Hurricanes are a good team. Well, Hurricanes are usually a second round knockout, or if they get to the conference finals, they barely do anything. So, I mean, if the Islanders had a better built team, maybe they could have beaten the Hurricanes in those two series. Because as we've seen, Carolina is kind of a paper tiger team. So if the Islanders, for me, if they want to get to the point where they're back in the conference finals and beyond, I think this year has to be a transitional year, and they have to get a younger and a fresher mindset and a new mentality in here and get younger and faster. And you know what? Physicality and effort and compete level have never really been a problem for the Islanders. It's been injuries. It's been a lack of a roster. If you want to talk about the mismanagement of Ilya Sorokin and Semyon Varlamov with the injuries and not having the goaltending depth, okay, I get it. Yeah, you could probably bring that up. But again, it comes down to injuries. I mean, I would agree with THG here, a lack of skill. And again, that's on the general manager. When you continue to sign middle six forwards and bottom six forwards to massive contracts for what they are, you're going to prohibit the cap space that you have to be able to go after the big guns in free agency. And that's been an Islander problem for a while. So for me, I definitely think we need to, or the Islanders rather, need to have a focus on transitioning towards the future, maybe freeing up some cap space, not necessarily replacing that this year. If you can get a Mitch Marner, by all means, I mean, that would help the Islanders big time. But I would have the same approach that I would want the Rangers to have with the Islanders with free agency. I would want to keep the space for next year and try to go after one of those big guns, because that could really help turn your franchise around a lot sooner than you think.
I think it's hard to rely on free agency if you're the New York Islanders, because you got to start attracting the free agents. And I think that Bo Horvat was really the first free agent. And because let's be honest, I know he was a trade, but I know he was a trade, but he basically came in sight unseen, signed an 8-year deal with the New York Islanders right away. I think that was a signal for the Islanders to say, wow, all right, could be a free agent destination. They're going to have an NHL event here next year at UBS Arena. UBS Arena is a gorgeous arena to play in. So they've changed around a lot of the narrative that was with them for years. I think they can attract free agents. Are they going to attract the marquee ones? That's remains to be seen. I think this is where you have to transition away from the early 2020s teams, where now you have to get those teams that made the deep runs and start transitioning a lot of those players out. Adam Pelech, great job, but I just don't know if he could be healthy. Ryan Pulock is still reliable, so if they kept Ryan Pulock, fine. As mentioned, you have all those defensemen that you used. Alexander Romanov looked really good this year. I keep flashing the numbers for Noah Dobson, who went from a 70-point season. Again, in our season preview, I thought he could possibly get to 80 this year. Instead, he only got about half the number that he had the previous year. I also think maybe an upgraded roster is going to help him there. And I think Ilya Sorokin answered some questions, even though he had to carry the Islanders on his back. And I do think the Islanders have options in goal. And Anthony, one of the biggest wins that they had during, I think it was the win streak, was when they had their fourth string goalie beat the Florida Panthers. And that was a huge moment for them. This team went from, oh no, they're going to run it back, to now they have this. I think there's a tremendous bright tomorrow for this team with their prospects, with a new voice there. I still have the question on the coach, but that's a different story. I'll ask you guys to sell me on that in a minute. We do have 5 questions. I added one more because I do want you guys to sell me on this. 5 questions on the New York Islanders, guys. Let's go. Anthony, convince me. Patrick Waugh, is he the right coach for the New York Islanders?
This is 6 questions, really, you mean?
It's 6. I added one.
Well, I'm not. I mean, clearly, I could tell the guy is borderline on your bowl list because you don't like him. Which I don't know why. I mean, what's Patrick Waugh ever done to you? But I'm not. No, I'm not going to try to sell you on him. All I'm going to tell you is this: when he took over for Lane Lambert, the Islanders were floundering. He took them. He got them into the playoffs. And again, this is all with a flawed roster. And then last year, yes, you could say they missed the playoffs, which obviously they did. But again, you have to step back and try to be objective and see, okay, well, one, they didn't miss the playoffs by much, and that was despite their most talented player, Matt Barzal, only playing 30 games. I mean, the guy missed 52 games for a team that doesn't have a ton of talent. When you miss your best player for that long, it's going to hurt you in a big way. As you mentioned before, Mark, they used 13 defensemen. At one point, only one player from their starting 6 defensemen opening night was in the lineup. Mike Riley, Scott Mayfield, Noah Dobson, Alexander Romanov were all hurt at the same time, which is why they signed D'Angelo. They traded for Peruvinich, and they claimed Boquist off waivers because they were so wounded back there in defense. Any team that's missing, 4 out of 6 of their starting defensemen are going to be in trouble. And the last point is, the goaltender. Semyon Varlamov didn't play a game after, I think, Halloween or November 1st. And then he was out for the rest of the year, and they had to overwork Sorokin, and they had to put in a very green Hogberg in goal. So, yeah, he went through a lot, and he did the best he could, and he still had them in playoff contention, almost to pretty much the end. So, is he the right coach? I mean, honestly, I don't think we'll know for sure until Matthew Darche puts his stamp on the team and gives him what he views as an acceptable roster. And as Phil touched on earlier, which was funny, Phil, because I said it to Mark before you came on, pretty much the same thing. If Darche improves the lineup, gives them a good team, and he falters out of the gate or they miss the playoffs, he's gone. I think this is his last chance. So for now, it's hard not to give the guy the benefit of the doubt based on everything I just laid out. So is he the right coach? I think we'll find out this coming season.
Phil, what do you think? Is Patrick Waugh the right coach for the New York Islanders?
I've voiced my opinions on him before. I think I've seen him with a better roster than what he has here, and he really hasn't been that great. I mean, we've seen it in Colorado. He had a very young Nathan McKinnon, a still in prime Paul Stastny, Matt Duchene in his prime years, Ryan O'Reilly in his prime years, and they just Tyson Barrie in his prime too, and they just did not. They were not a good team after that first year with Waugh.
But that first year, he coached them up to the number 1 seed in the West.
Well, they were a very, very good team. I don't remember if they were number 1 in the West that year, but they were a very good team. Varlamov had like a Vezina caliber year that year, and it just from there, yeah, it was first in the Central Division. But they were a very good team that year, and then they kind of fell apart. And I mean, for me, I'm not completely sure. I don't think he's had a great roster here. But then again, seeing what happened in Colorado just makes me think, like, is this guy really cut out for the NHL? I mean, we've seen him with a better roster. So you could go either way with this. I'm really not sure. I lean towards no. But Matthew Darche seems to think that he deserves a chance with a better roster, and I imagine that Darche will go out there and do that. Or Darche could commit to going younger. And if he commits to going younger, maybe it gives Waugh more shelf life for all we know.
I just have my questions when it comes to him. I can't put my finger on what exactly he excels at, besides being Patrick Waugh. That's one reason why I have my reservations. And you know what, Anthony, you're right. I need to be a little bit more open to that. I'm trying to be. I'm trying to see it, because even as an impartial pundit on this, I was watching when Lane Lambert was coaching the Islanders, and they were blowing third period lead after third period lead after third period lead. And eventually we're texting each other going, when are they going to fire this guy? And Waugh comes in, does a great job the year before. Last season, I don't think he did that much. I question the way he handles the players personally, because that's also a big factor of being a coach. Let's see how he does this year. Okay, because after this, I don't want to hear about the roster. I don't want to hear about him complaining about the roster or anything else. So it's either he does well this year or he's gone. Because here's the other thing. Most of the prospects we outlined, possibly they could be going back to school, or except for Callum Ritchie, he's probably going to be with the New York Islanders next year. Number 5, will Darche move Barzal back to center with Nelson gone, or leave him at the wing? Bill, let's address this one to you. What do you think is going to happen with this one?
Unless they go and they get another center, I really don't know who fits the bill here. But I mean, it really depends on what they do at center. I think Barzal's better, probably suited as a winger, if you ask me. I don't think he's terrible defensively, but I think he's maybe average at best defensively. I I think he's better suited to be a playmaking winger than he is a center, in my opinion. So maybe they go and they get a center. Do they go and they get a guy like Marner and keep him at center and have him play with Marner? I mean, you could really boost Barzal's numbers if you do that, and you have Horvat play as a second line, maybe a little more of a hybrid second line / matchup center, kind of like how the Rangers would do with Mika Zibanejad, in a way. But I think he's better. Personally, I think he's better suited on the wing. I could see him going back to center, though, especially if they can't get another center to come in and take that number 2 spot.
Anthony, should he stay at the wing or should they get that skating ability and let it loose again?
Again, I think he's right. It depends on what are the players they bring in and who they move. Because let's say if they move Pajot, and now you have Horvat and Richie in the middle, but Richie's going to be green. At the least you want to start him off at 3C. So then play second line center. Maybe you have to put Barzal back to center at that point. So it's contingent on a lot of the other moves that Darche does. If they bring in Marner, then that changes things too. But also remember, last year when Barzal got back up to the 80-point mark, he was playing with Bo Horvat on the wing. So maybe you want to keep him on the wing and try to find another center. We're talking about Marco Rossi seems to be available. He's up high on pretty much a lot of these trade boards. Do they go and try to get another center? I mean, that could help too. So so much of it depends on what Darche does in terms of player transactions with other guys. But I tend to agree. I think letting him play freely on the wing with his speed is probably a better fit for him. I think the wing, but again, it's going to depend on what Darche can do.
This is an interesting question. First things first, Matt Barzal has to be healthy. And just to clarify one thing with you, Anthony, if it was a chance for them to make the playoffs at the very last week of the season, Barzal would have played.
He said in his exit interview that he was like, when it was getting a little close there, when there were only a couple points out, he said he was really pushing himself and he was trying to get himself ready in the event they made the playoffs. He would have tried to give it a go. So it seemed like he would have, but he said then once, last week of the season or a little more where they started, clearly they weren't going to make it. He started to, hold back on his training. So.
Yeah, because I still have a little bit of the memories of him at center and just thinking that the Islanders should really let him just be able to skate. But if he's not that same player, then you got to keep him on the wing and you got to keep him with Bo Horvat because that's where there's the most chemistry. So I think the wing is how you're going to have to keep him right now. I'm not seeing how he could go to center, but let's maybe that could be a potential move in case if they don't pick up another center. I do think his presence on the wing. All right, Anthony, right back to you with this one. Who are the potential free agent or trade targets for Matthew Darche this offseason?
Well, you start with the big obvious one, Mitch Marner. You hear some things that the Islanders are going to try to court him, but he's going to have interest from a decent amount of teams. Good timing for this question mark because I see some of these names starting to be talked about. But Nikolai Ehlers is another one. Nikolai Ehlers is a speedster. He certainly plays with a ton of speed, but he's like a 60-point guy. I mean, he could be an option. Brock Besser, Brock Besser is he's more of a pure goal scorer. So could he would, I mean, listen, now just kick all the skill and scoring they can get. So yeah, I mean, Brock Besser could be an option. you hear about the whole the joke about the John Tavares reunion, and I mean he's a free agent. I don't see that happening. Just for anyone that's even thinking that. So I would say those are probably the three main guys. Marner, Besser, Ehlers. I mean there are certainly other guys out there. Like Yanni Gourde's a free agent who has ties to Matthew Darche, but I mean Yanni Gourde wouldn't be a first line. That would be like if you trade JG Pajot and you want to replace him with another typical third line center, but that really wouldn't solve the top line player. Don't get me wrong. I don't think any Islander fan should scoff at that if that happened, but they would need more. But those are the three guys off the top of my head, Marner, Besser, Ehlers, that I think they look at. In terms of trade targets, this is perfect because we've talked. Phil did a good work with the trade board yesterday. There are some names on there that sure could be a fit for the Islanders. I mean, Marco Rossi would be fantastic. Peterka, but again, it all depends on the cost to acquire these players. But those could be possibly two trade targets he looks at. And then just like anything else, which we've always talked about, could also be guys that we're not even thinking about that could be available that pop up in the course of GMs talking to each other. But yeah, I would say in terms of the free agents, it's Marner, Ehlers, Besser, and then trade target. Marco Rossi could be a guy. Peterka, Buffalo's a team in flux. Are there any other players on that roster that could be of interest to the Islanders? Maybe. But those are just some of the names off the top of my head.
You took the guy that I was trying to think of for the New York Islanders when you said Yanni Gourde. You said Brock Besser. I do want to say this for Yanni Gourde. If the Islanders did get him, imagine pairing him with Simon Holmstrom. Phil, what targets do you think the New York Islanders could go for this year?
I would imagine they would look at Marner. I mean, the three guys that Anthony said are really. I wonder if they look at Ehlers and Besser over Marner just because they might want to keep the cap space. I mean, Marner's probably you're probably looking at an upwards of 13, 14 million for Marner on an AAV. Looking at the Islanders' cap situation, really the one guy that comes off the books is Kyle Palmieri, and this $5 million. You're going to have
if he does come off the books.
Okay, fine. We're going to say that he's off the books because he's off the books.
Mm-hmm.
We're looking at new deals for Max Siplikov and Simon Holmstrom. Simon Holmstrom's going to make a lot more than $850,000. I'll tell you that right now.
Oh yeah,
after a 25-point season, and a guy that's now considered one of the better penalty killers and best short-handed threats in the league. Yeah, he's going to make a lot more than that. And then Noah Dobson, that $4 million, you might have to double that. $8 million might be, and that's if they keep him. I mean, imagine Adam Pelican is $5.75 million if you can move him, but then you've got also another $2.5 million for Alex Romanov. Might look like 4.5 or $5 million for Alex Romanov with the way that he's going. If you could keep that under 4, at 4 at most, that might help you. But I don't know if they're going to have the space for Marner. Ehlers and Besser would be very realistic for me. Sure, you could say that, but will you have to retain salary to move Pajot? That's the thing.
Mm-hmm.
Even with that being the case, you're going to have to look at allocating your salary in other ways because these guys still need new contracts on top of bringing in someone like Marner. And if you're allocating 13 to 14 million to one guy, that means less space to those other guys that need new deals. So maybe some of the names that Anthony put in the chat here, like a Granlund or a Duchesne or a Dadonov or a Kuzmenko, I would be very wary about Dadonov. I mean, not Donato, sorry. Donato and his very high shooting percentage this year, whether or not that production is sustainable. But Jamie Benn is getting older and his production is declining. He ain't going to cost anywhere near the $9.5 million he's been making, but it's still, I mean, he's a decline candidate. I mean, if you can get him on the cheaper, sure, I think he could still come in and give you anywhere from 40 to 50 points, maybe a little more than that, depending on the situation who he's playing with. But I would be very wary of setting your sights specifically on Marner and then being like, oh, hey, you know what? We may not have the cap space to be able to do that. Can Darche get creative and move some of these salaries out? Yes, but you still have a lot of deals to give to your guys internally. And unless you plan on moving some of those guys, Marner might be a tough sell, or not a tough sell, but a tough fit rather, to get him in there at that type of AAV.
Yeah, one of the guys I can't help but look at that list and see the name popping out of me is Matt Duchene. The Islanders have had interest in him in a long time. I mean, this is going back to when he was in Colorado.
He's been such a great fit in Dallas, though. I can't see him wanting to leave. But I mean,
does he sign another 1 year, $3 million deal after a point per game season? No, that's the
probably not. This is my last chance
that.
cash in.
I can't see that. But you also got to be wary with a guy like that looking to cash in because he's what, 34, like 33, 34.
He's
yeah, he's the same age as Tavares. So he comes up as another one that could be a possible decline candidate. Teams might be wary on giving him anything more than 2 years.
Well, a guy that's looking for a bounce back season right here, Noah Dobson. Number 3, will Noah Dobson garner a long-term extension or be moved? Anthony, right back at you with this one.
So even though he had a big drop in production, I think one thing's clear. Him and his agent are still going to be asking for and receiving a lot of money. I think, I think like a 7 to 7.5 is wishful thinking. I think ultimately he's going to get 8. He's going to get upwards of 8. It's just a matter of, are the Islanders going to be the one that give it to him? If they take Schaefer first overall, being that Schaefer's the left side, Dobson's the right side, I think that's all the makings of having 2 guys there that you want to keep in your organization. Or could Darche have the mindset of, okay, well, I have Matthew Schaefer now. Do we move Dobson and try to get a young forward to help us out offensively? So I don't know. I tend to think that he's gonna stay, but again, I don't know. Darche is gonna have his own ways of evaluating talent. So if they do trade Noah Dobson, they got to make sure that they hit a home run there. I think there would be a lot of teams interested in him. So maybe you play those teams against each other and you get a really good return. But if they do keep him, I think it's going to be the hope that, clearly he bounces back, which is definitely probably likely. I mean, Noah Dobson is, not a 39-point defenseman. He already had a 50-point year, another 49-point year. It's, at the very least, it's clear that, last year was more of an aberration than a 70-point year. So I think it's safe that he'll be back to at least 50 points. But again, it's also how Darche views his defensive game. I mean, he is still young. Sometimes he makes a little bit of questionable decisions. Do they feel that he's going to, he's going to grow out of that and he's going to become a much better defensive player? I think it was Dennis Potvin, which, I mean, one of the best defensemen of all time. You kind of, when he speaks, you listen. And he had said that, he thinks it takes, young defensemen until they play close to 300 games to really round into the player that they're going to be. So, I think there's still a lot of room for growth for Dobson. Again, it all depends on how the contract negotiations go. Remember he fired his representation and he went with Newport Sports, big agency. If they're being unreasonable and Darche feels that it's just the ask is too high, then maybe he looks to move him, knowing that there would be a lot of teams interested. So right now, I lean towards they're going to give him a long-term extension. The one thing I will say that's out, I don't think Dobson's going to settle for another bridge type deal. I think he's going to want to go long-term here. And right now, yeah, I would say that I lean slightly a little bit more towards them signing him. But again, possibly drafting Matthew Schaefer, who looks to be a franchise defenseman, does that maybe change their mindset a little bit? So, and lastly, Dobson's a right-hand shot with guys like Ryan Pollock there, who's a right-hand shot. Scott Mayfield's a right-hand shot defenseman. Depends on what they do with them too, right? I mean, if let's say you move Pollock, you buy out or trade Mayfield, then at that point, if you get rid of Dobson, then you need completely, a bunch more right-hand defensemen to play in your top six. So similar with Barzal and moving back to center, again, you also have to consider what Darche does with the rest of his defense core too. So that comes into play. But again, I lean a little bit more towards him getting an extension of the Isles.
Phil, what do you think? Is Dobson going to be a long-term New York Islander?
I wouldn't give up on him. I really wouldn't. With Dennis Poppin on the mindset of 300 games sounds about right, if you will. I mean, Dobson's already played 388 though. I mean, he's closing in on 400. So I think it's probably going to look something like 8x8. That's what I think. I think you're looking at a year, $64 million,
Right.
And that's going to be. I think he stays for that. I can't see him being moved unless he's moved for a similar young talent, either at forward or defense. If they end up moving him for forward, I would imagine that they would have to have like a free agent signing come in. You can't move Adam Pelech and then or move Noah Dobson and then not have at least a free agent signing come in. And that would probably mean that they're probably taking Matthew Schaefer then at that point too. So it's kind of, I would imagine there probably is some contingency factor here with the moves that they make in the offseason. But I ultimately think that their plan is to sign him long-term. And why would you not, again, I've said this in the last, I think, 2 or 3 streams. Why would you not want to have a defense core that's locked down by Schaefer and Dobson for the next 10 to 15 years? Like, why not at this point? Because that, again, you win in the cap era. No, I don't see that. No. I don't know if St. Louis is going to move Cairo. I don't. I mean, it's possible, but I don't know if they really, really want to move him. I think they want him to get that proverbial kick in the ass and get to that next level, which they think that he can be at. But to get back to Dobson, no, I wouldn't do that. And I think that if you can build at center and on defense, you can build a winner. And that's how that's done in the cap era. There's a formula. There's enough of a trend to call it a formula with conviction. And if you can build around Schaefer and Dobson for the next 10 plus years, man, that's a pretty good start to building up your defense corps.
Yeah, I think Noah Dobson is worth more to the New York Islanders than he is off the New York Islanders. And as I know you heard the rumors, could they trade Dobson, package him, and get into the top 5? I'm not exactly sure what team is in the top 5 to try to jump back up and get Hagens. I don't know who's really taking Noah Dobson for that. So in that case, you got your power play quarterback. You got a very solid defenseman. We talked about him last year. I think we kind of said this last year. There's about 8 guys you could see that potentially could put up a Norris Trophy winning season. And Noah Dobson was one of the 8. He had a 70-point season. I thought he was going to get to 80 this year. And I actually do think he's a little bit better defensively than some people think that he is. It's just a matter of pairing him with the right defenseman and also having the right circumstances for him. I think Dobson can easily bounce back. He's not a 39-point defenseman, guys. Come on, that's not true. And you can make the case, though, in negotiating that he's not quite on par with Adam Fox, but at one point he was producing nearly as much on the points with him. So that's something to look out for. Anthony, I think you're right. I think the negotiations are going to tell what his future is. But I'm even with the cap going up, I think 8 for 8 might be a little bit too rich for my blood for him. Number 2, how much of the Snow Lou core will be moved by Darche? That's Pelech, Pollock, Lee, Mayfield, Pajot, Barzal. I'm going to actually leave Bo Horvat off of that because he's got a full no move clause right now. Anthony, we'll start with you on this one once again.
I think a decent amount of them. Well, I think a couple will. I think Lee's gonna stay. I think, and actually, I was just looking at my timeline. The Islanders hadn't posted Lee's here, and he was shaking hands with Darche, and they were talking and stuff. Doesn't mean the guy's not going to be traded, but I just think he's the captain. He's got 1 year left. He had a good year last year. I think Darche is, at the mindset of, okay, well, I'll keep him, and if things go badly, then maybe we move him at the deadline. So I think Lee will survive Darche's offseason. However, the rest, I'm not so sure about. I think Pajot has a very good chance to be moved. He's got 1 year left. He's great in the dot. He actually had a little bit of a bounce back year in terms of his point total. So I think they would be able to move him. Scott Mayfield's cap hit isn't an issue. It's just the term. I think he's got 4 years left now, I think. Maybe 5. I got to check on that. But so I don't know about him being traded. I mean, it's
no, sorry. Mayfield has 5 years left, I believe.
Okay. Yeah. So it's a lot. I think, they could buy him out because they actually do save a decent amount on the cap this year if they did. So that's a possibility. And then, Pelech and Pollock, we talked about a little bit, right? So Pollock's got the full no trade. So he would be harder to move. Pelech's got a 16-team limited NTC. So he could, dictate at least a little bit where he goes to. But right now, I do believe that one of them will be moved, especially today, listening to Darche. He was asked about, what's important to him, what's his philosophy, how he wants his team to play. And he said, I want my team to play fast and emphasize that, defense and transitioning the puck is huge. And right now, the Islanders don't have a ton of puck movers. Pelech and Pollock, they're not Cohen's by any means. They're not like really slow, but at the same time, they're not your prototypical puck mover. So if Darche truly wants to just transform the team a little bit, especially on the back end, how they play, it starts with one of them leaving. So I think that one of them are going to move. I think Pajot, I lean towards moving. I think Lee stays. And Mayfield, I'm a little I'm 50-50 on. But yeah, this isn't going to be a Lou team. He's gonna move a bunch of these veterans, and the only guy I would truly be shocked on, like I said, is Lee. I'd be truly shocked if Lee was moved, but the rest, I wouldn't be surprised at all.
Phil, who do you think you see going?
I don't see Mayfield. I think for what he is, his cap hit is tolerable. I mean, you're not going to find a lot of guys that are like 5s that are making a lot less than $3.5 million these days. He can play up in the lineup if necessary. Like, you can have him as your 4. Kind of really the support piece on a second pairing if necessary. He's looked better since I think it was an ankle injury that he had, Anthony, 2 seasons ago. Yeah. So I mean, he's looked better since coming back from that, but I don't see him going anywhere. Lee, I could see. I know it would be kind of on the shocking side, but I could see it if they want to go in a different direction. I don't think it's going to happen, but it's not like it would totally shock me. Pajot, I definitely see gone. Pelech, I can see gone. Pollock, I can't. I think for the reasons that Anthony said before, I think it's going to be tough to move him, especially if he's married a Long Island girl. Just last year, she might not want to be away from her family, and he might not want to leave. So you might want to just kind of move off of Pollock because I don't see him being moved right now. I think they would want to keep him anyway. I think that he's a bit more durable than Pellick anyway. I think Pollock might have more. Actually, I don't know. I think Pellick is a better defenseman, if you ask me.
Yeah.
But he's got too many injury issues. That's the issue. I don't think Pajot has much value as you think. I don't. I think they may have to retain to move him.
He's more trade deadline value.
Yeah, I think if you move him at the deadline, it might be an easier sell. But I think I could see him also being a trade deadline or an early July move because of the fact that I think the Islanders are going to want space to make moves in the summer, and they're going to want to get rid of it. But do you have to retain $1 million and $1.5 million to move Pajot? And I you know what? I don't think that's terrible. With the cap going up, if you can get an okay return by retaining $1 million to 1.5 on him and just get the cap space and have the availability and flexibility to make those moves in the offseason, I think that's more valuable to you than holding on to him for an entire year and then dealing him at the deadline, not being able to make the moves that you want to make this offseason. That's just me personally.
Yeah, for me, it's Pellick really is the one that I think might go. He hasn't been that durable the last couple of years, and I worry about concussion problems because he's had a few of those. Mayfield is reasonable. Lee's got a full no move. He's not going to waive that. Neither is Pollock. And Pajot, his max value is at the deadline. So really, it's just Pellick that you have to look at because I don't think Barzal or Horvat are moving. So as far as the Lou era goes, it's really Adam Pellick, and he could be a good sell for a team that is a contender that just wants a solid shutdown defenseman. He's almost, I guess, perfect for the Carolina Hurricanes, but I'm trying to think of other teams besides them right now. Carolina is the one that just came to mind, guys. But you could also hold on to him. It's just I think there's diminishing returns the longer going on with Pellick. I think that's a little bit too soon.
They saved $2.33 million by doing so the next 3 years, but then they have a dead cap of $1.166 million the next 3 years. So it's a 6-year buyout. I mean, with the cap going up, that dead cap for those final 3 years really isn't terrible.
Just go down and see if he wants to be traded somewhere. Anthony Duclair's been traded so many different places. It doesn't even matter.
Yeah, I would gauge the trade market on him because $2.3 million in cap space savings. I mean, sure, it helps, but it's not a lot considering that his contract is only, I think, $3.5 million. So it's not like you're getting a ton of cap off the books with him. Engvall, you're probably not getting a buyout on because of the years, and I think the signing bonus on him is just way too much to make any type of buyout work.
Anthony, you say about how much I think about Patrick Waugh or what I think about him. Boy, Patrick Waugh thinks about Pierre Engvall.
Yeah, you're eventually so if you buy out Engvall, it's a 10-year buyout right now. And the first 5 years of it, you save $2 million in cap space, and you're going to have $1 million in dead cap. So you're going to pay $1 million a year for a guy that's a fourth liner just not to have him on the roster. You might as well either bury him or trade him at that point.
Yeah, and doesn't really make much sense.
No.
And of course, the big question that it comes to the New York Islanders, especially ever since the beginning of the month. Who will be the number 1 overall draft pick? Schaefer, Misa, or Hagens? We see to you, Mr. Laraco.
I think they're just gonna do what the consensus is right now and pick Matthew Schaefer. That's what I lean towards. With that said, I don't know, I'd go against the grain from a lot of Islander fans, but honestly, I wouldn't be disappointed or think it's a bad move if they traded down, collected some other assets, and drafted James Hagens. Hagens, even though he has dropped, which I tweeted about the other day. Corey Pryman said that he still thinks there's a possibility that when it's all said and done, he can end up the best player in the entire draft, and that in terms of forwards, he thinks that he has the most pure skill. So this isn't like just going way off the board. It's still a very highly touted player. With a skill set that the Islanders need. I mean, the Islanders for the longest time have lacked high-end talent, and his ceiling is that of a 1C. Does he reach it? I don't know. I can't say it right now, but that's the type of talent that he does possess. He's a phenomenal skater. He's a great playmaker. And people talk about his size. The scouts have said, oh, he's small, and they're worried about his ability to get to the inside. But he's 5'11". He's not 5'8". He's 1 inch away from being 6 foot. So the whole undersized thing and small, it's not that crazy small. It's not like Cole Caulfield, who's listed at 5'8". I wouldn't be surprised if he's actually 5'7". But speaking of Caulfield was supposed to go much higher than he did, and he fell because of his size. And he's been making a lot of those teams who passed up on him regret it, because he's established himself as one of the better young goal scorers in the league. So I don't think it's a bad thing if they took Hagens. And not only that, but whether you want to say you win from the net out or whatnot, you also need to be deep at center. And if the Islanders drafted James Hagens, and he actually reaches potential, now you have Hagens and Callum Ritchie as your number 1 and number 2 center.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's pretty good. That's pretty damn good. And that's not even considering you still have guys like Bo Horvat and Matt Barzal still around too. So you'd be fairly deep there. So I don't know. I don't know which direction it's going to go for sure. Again, like I said, right now, I do believe they're probably just going to likely take Matthew Schaefer, but I wouldn't discount the possibility of them drafting James Hagens. The last part of this too is the scouting combine starts June 1st, so just a couple of days. Things could change. I mean, you can interview a player there, and you could love his character. You could completely love his character, because teams also draft not only the ability on the ice, but they look at the players, their personality, they're a good person, these are the things they project. I mean, you hear it all times in all sports. They ask players questions that you would never think would be asked, and what was your family like? They ask these type of questions. So, is it possible that James Hagens convinces the Islanders on his interviews? I'm from here. I loved the team growing up. It would be such an honor to be drafted by them. And if they feel that he'd be super motivated to come home and play for them on top of his skill, do they think it's too much to pass up on? I don't know. Again, I'm not the scout. I'm not Matthew Darche, but these are the type of things that you think of and you consider. And lastly, before I hand it off to you guys too, for a team that yes, they finally have actually a pretty good, at least at the high end, their prospect pool, the depth wise could get a little better, but you have Danny Nelson, Cole Eiserman, Callum Ritchie. Let's say it's James. If you add James Hagens, you still want to keep improving your prospect pool and your depth. So if you could trade down let's say you get Hagens and you pick up another first round pick in the deal or another second round pick and you acquire more assets, that only helps for the future. So it's certainly something to consider. I wouldn't be so quick to write off Hagens, but I do think that the pick will be Schaefer. And I lied. Lastly, Misa's good, but if the Islanders if they did decide they wanted a forward, not a defenseman, I don't see any way they would pick Hagens over Misa. I think it's either going to be Schaefer or Hagens.
Also, let me just ask this question. We're always focused on Hagens playing for his hometown team, the team that he grew up watching, that's always going to motivate him. Do you think there could be a possibility of Hagens putting too much pressure on himself should he become a New York Islander?
Yeah, it's possible. I mean, I think that's possible for any player that goes to somewhere where they grow up. And, a lot of you see it with Montreal, they every time there's a Francophone player that's in the first round and Montreal's a first round pick, there's always a link of, oh, hey, this Francophone, bring this guy in. I remember, Louis LeBlanc. They took Louis LeBlanc in 2009, and it was considered a reach pick. And then on top of that, he had the pressure of being a French kid from the area, and now you're going to put all this expectation or all these expectations on this kid's shoulders, and it doesn't bode well for them. I don't think there would be as much pressure, obviously, with Hagens and Long Island, just because Long Island is not the hockey hotbed that Montreal or Quebec, for that matter, is. But at the same time, you are having a hometown kid come in. There's going to be a lot of PR. If they end up taking him at 1, he would be the first ever player from Long Island taken first overall. He could be the first ever player from Long Island taken in the top 5 of a draft, because Komisarek, Higgins, and Nystrom were not top 5 picks in 2002. But there's a lot to put on Hagens' shoulders if you do make him the number 1 overall pick. If you trade down for him and you get him at 4, yeah, there might be some pressure because, hey, you know what? This team gave up the number 1 overall pick to go out there and trade down for a kid that's from Long Island. So now, oh, crap. They just gave up Matthew Schaefer or Michael Misa for me. Now I have to go and make sure that I am the absolute best player, or I am a better player than them, because they valued me that much more than they valued having the ability to take the first overall pick and make their decision. So it could go both ways. But to Anthony's point about Hagens and his size, it's not necessarily the 5'11" that scares the scouts, I think. I think it's the weight with him. And does he fill out that frame? It's not a guarantee that he's going to bulk up to 200 pounds and he's going to be 5'11", 200 pounds like Sidney Crosby. That doesn't happen for every player. Some people in general are just meant to be thinner people. Like Anthony, look at you. Like I always thought when we were younger that you were going to fill up and bulk out quite a bit. But you and I have different body types. It's even Mark. Mark is a different body type from us. It's just people don't always have the same trajectory. Yes, he could bulk up a bit and work out and add muscle, and it doesn't mean that 185. That doesn't mean that he's streaming. Like, look at Holt, Anthony. Holt was what, like 195, something like that. Muted.
Yeah. He's short but built. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, if you've ever seen Greg, and Greg is a damn good hockey player. He played for Quinnipiac, and he was their captain at one point. And Greg was a solid 195. Like Hagens could end up being that, for all we know. But I do think that the size is it's somewhat of a concern. I do think that, I'll say this. for like as good as I say Barzal of a playmaker is, James Hagens, if you ask me, has better vision and smarts.
Mm.
Have you guys seen the clip of him literally just skating around through people and his head is just up the entire time?
Yeah.
You can see his eyes looking all over the place. Like, that's somebody that really, really understands the game at a high level mentally. Like, that, to me, and I still think he can end up being the best player in this draft. I think it's very possible. I mean, other pundits have said the same thing. So, this could really go a bunch of different directions.
I've looked at all of our comments on the Hagens videos so far. The Hagens, Schaefer, and Misa. There's maybe a 40-30-30 split going for Schaefer. Most of the people. There just isn't that much of a body of work for all these guys for us to be able to go, Misa's generational, or Schaefer is going to be the next Cale McCarr, or Hagens is going to be a better version of Jack Hughes. You hear a bunch of different things. When it comes to Hagens, you can't help but ask the question, all right, so they draft them. And I do think, Anthony, we've talked about this several times. I think the idea is best, trade down. Figure out a way to get down as low as 3 and maybe collect another first-round draft pick, maybe even a second-round draft pick. That'll help. Build up more assets, because the more you have, like Anthony, you said it before, it's not just for your farm system, because what happens if you miss on a prospect, but what happens if you got a prospect that you want to trade in order to get somebody? That's why you need as many assets as you possibly can. When it comes to Hagens, though, the thing I can't help but ask, because a lot of people keep on saying, oh, just don't take him because he's a local kid. Well, again, I use that example of the 1980 draft of Montreal passing on Dennis Savard, taking Doug Wickenheiser. Savard ended up being the better player. What if the Islanders select Hagens and they get it right? I mean, obviously, everybody's just going to go, hey, we got the great guy. That's it. You got to be sure about it. And I think Hagens gives you the opportunity of moving back, getting more assets, compiling more things, and either draft picks, players, whatever you want to get in that trade. And this would be the first time that the Islanders traded out of a number 1. They traded up to get Rick DiPietro, and they got John Tavares in the lottery. So I think trading down is the best option and taking the local kid. All right. Guys, that's the end of the Islanders questions that we have right here. Let's take some of your questions and your thoughts. And of course, anything that we didn't cover that you might want to get over, bring it up right now.
Yeah. So at Darche's press conference, he did announce that he's making wholesale changes at Bridgeport. The whole coaching staff is gone. He already informed Rick Kalwowski. Him and his staff are gone. He's going to implement his own people there. And he referenced how important. He even joked. He's like, I played 400 games in the AHL. He's like, I know what it's like to be in the minors, and he knows how important it is and how crucial it is to your NHL team to have the culture and the development down there be really good. So he's going to bring his own people, so that's comforting for Islander fans. Bridgeport, hopefully it won't be a complete tire fire anymore. Someone asked him the question about the upper management there, kind of in reference to Chris Lamorello without saying his name. Darche said that he's still evaluating those, but I would tend to think if he's getting rid of the whole coaching staff, I think he's going to get rid of Lou's son too. So, but that's not official yet. And the other thing we didn't touch on, that he did say that Tommy Abilene and John McClain have been told they've been let go, and him and Waugh are going to work on bringing in staff for him to help him. So those were the two biggest takeaways from his press conference that we didn't touch on. And last thing, not that it was really any surprise, but someone asked him about the first overall pick, and he said for him to trade it, he would absolutely have to get his socks knocked off. So anybody thinking that's not happening. So, but yeah, that's about it. Just the only things we didn't touch on in relation to his press conference.
I did not see it.
Hopefully it does.
Hopefully, yes. Hopefully it does. Yes.
Mr.
You already saw
George,
it.
we love your work so far.
Well, again, first and foremost, you know who I'd love to have on is that man that's mentioned down there. Because if Lou was on, just the amount of time we could dedicate just to his experiences.
Oh my God,
Oh my
the
goodness.
way that this would go between Anthony probably selling you out as being the one that called him that one time, and then Anthony, Mark would turn around and sell Anthony out and be like, well, this guy kind of ripped you a couple of years ago for not making any moves in the offseason.
Well,
I
again,
could really sit back with a bunch of popcorn and watch the fireworks go. And have
my involvement would have been accidental, as I said before. But as far as Lou goes, I guess, and again, he's the greatest American hockey mind that the NHL has ever seen, and that even goes over Herb Brooks, who is tremendous. But there are other guys potentially that we could have on now that the Lou restrictions are over. And I am very much looking forward to that.
Well, yeah, Lou never allowed players to do podcasts or shows or anything. You already saw it. Cal Clutterbuck was on the Cannon Strict podcast the other day, and he was, he was talking freely about things. So, even though he didn't play and he's retired, with Lou as a general manager, even though he wasn't playing anymore, he still would have been allowed to do that, being that he does stuff for MSG, so for the Isles. So, that's all over with now. So that opens the door for sure.
Yeah, definitely. We try to cover as much of the Islanders as we can. Anthony's very, very, very dedicated to it, even on his own. So if you're not following Anthony on Twitter, make sure that you're doing so already. We should try to hide this banner so this way you can see everybody. There's Anthony's Twitter handle right there, LaRocco0801.
And by the way, I always retweet anything you got, Anthony.
Yeah, and we always try to retweet each other's tweets, so this way we get more exposure with this. But Darche said prospect camp is coming back. Anthony, would you have any information on that, or? I mean,
I would imagine so, because Lou didn't allow the guys to do that. So with the prospect camp coming back, I would imagine, if you go, you would be able to see some of the guys. Again, these were Lou rules, and now that he's gone, that stuff isn't going to be in effect anymore. So I would say yes.
Yeah, that'd be pretty cool. I went one year, and Long Beach's Joey Diamond was actually there, as well as Long Island's John Chavo, who played minor pro ice hockey. So, you get to see some talents in there and stuff. I got to see, I think Mikko Koskinen was there that year that I went. There were some other good prospects the year that I went. But, it'd be pretty cool. I mean, that could be something we can attend in a media capacity.
I do have to ask. I just lost my thought on this one. You guys are killing me.
If we do this, I am absolutely asking him about the Matt Rempe tussle at the Stadium Series, because that's one of the I think that's one of the coolest things Matt Martin has ever done on ice. Like, that this kid is playing like in his very first game, and you go and you ask him if he wants to, get a tussle going and get, set the tone out there. Oh, by the way, anybody who is a Shoresy or Letterkenny fan, the Islanders UBS announced today that the Shoresy Classic is coming to UBS.
Wow.
And we're setting a tone and we are going,
That's awesome.
boys. Mark, are you ready?
I'll give my balls a tug.
Good, because you're going.
That's another thing that would have never happened with Lou still here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is great. We all know I'm a huge Shoresy and Letterkenny fan. So for me, I am so pumped. One of my best friends, James, is Mark. You met James, obviously played against in ice hockey a couple weeks ago, but he's a huge fan. So I definitely want to get a bunch of tickets, get a bunch of us to go, and then definitely see that because that's going to be fun because I want to meet the crew too.
Yeah, that would be great. Me and my wife, we both love not only Letterkenny, but we loved the Shoresy series. It's all come out great. I do remember what I was trying to say before, guys, and that's one great thing about Matthew Darche. And in this aspect, Lou was a needed reaction after the Garth Snow years, and you got a guy who's a first-time GM, but Garth Snow, yeah, he was a union rep, but he was really learning the GM job on the fly. You had so many changes that went on with the Mike Milbury era, between them making him the coach and GM and 9,000 coaches at one point on the bench. And there was so much going on. This might be like the most refreshing situation, again, excluding Lou, because once Lou came in, there was a degree of professionalism, and you knew the New York Islanders are going to get better and get better quickly. So
Yeah,
we Islander players with facial hair during the regular season now.
the Yankees broke that tradition this year. And
I didn't like the Yankees breaking that tradition, by the way.
I'm up and down with it because here's my issue. And as a Yankee fan, diehard Yankee fan, why is it that they allow facial hair above the lip and not even, hold on, even below the lip? Sparky Lyle, Goose Gossage, where did their mustaches go?
Yeah.
Yeah, that went down.
Yeah, they went down. Why is it that they were allowed to have those, but you can't have a full beard? I mean, I understand you don't want them looking like caveman Johnny Damon or Kevin Millar circa 2004, 2005. But why is this okay and that's not if it's maintained clean? Jonathan Taves.
I don't know. I have my issues with that. I was looking at the Jonathan Taves thing. I was starting to bring up his because he's
I don't know where he goes, and I don't know who I mean, I don't know what he can give you. He's been out for so long.
Yeah, that's just what I'm afraid of with that one. The thing about the facial hair thing, as far as the Islanders go ahead, bring it back. As far as the Yankees go, the New York Yankees did it for so long. I don't want it to ever get changed. And for instance, the one person that would be most upset about that, you could argue, is Don Mattingly, who trimmed his sideburns for Mr. Burns. But I'm not as opposed to it for the NHL, but for Major League Baseball, the New York Yankees had a different level on anybody else. That's where professionalism, and don't put names on the back of the jerseys either. So that's when I know that everything's going downhill.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to do that.
Yeah, I mean, but here's my problem though. Going back to Jonathan Taves, he goes back to Winnipeg. Let's say that's where he goes because they need another second line center. Maybe he's got something left in the tank, but what does he have left at this point, Anthony?
I mean, I don't know. He hasn't played in a while, but that also could, on the flip side, he also could. I mean, he could be really fresh. I mean, he's a professional athlete. It's not like he's been sitting on the couch doing nothing the last couple of years. So, he might be rejuvenated and he might feel really healthy, and who knows. So, I mean, the team's definitely going to sign him. I think. Just. It also depends on the fit in the role. Does he get a lot of power play time? Is he still? I'm assuming he would still be in the top 6. So I don't know. I wouldn't write him off though. I wouldn't write him off and say that he'd be that he can't do it or it would be a nothing signing. I still think he could be pretty productive. Nothing to his 60, 80 point seasons, but I don't see why he wouldn't, in the right situation, why he wouldn't be able to, maybe post 40 points and still play defensive style hockey. We'll see.
All right. Yeah, Phil, what are you thinking?
I feel like that's a lot to ask. It's been so long. Like you really don't know what he's got at this point. He's getting up there in age too, and that's another thing. Like
Yeah.
this game has, I don't know if it's passed him by or not. He's 37 now.
Yep, just turned 37.
Yeah, he hasn't played since the 2022-23 season. And even those last 2 years that he played, like he was kind of a shell of himself. And then he missed the full 2021 season. So he's missed a lot of time over the last few years. I don't know, man. I wouldn't. I mean, could he come back and be a fourth line center? Like I would say maybe at the bare minimum that's what he is, but I don't know if I'm penciling him in for 40 points either. If he was younger, maybe. But I mean, the numbers state decline, and then his age is not working in his favor at all either. So,
Do you think he could come back, just be a fourth line center somewhere? Just be the defensive matchup guy?
I don't know why you would want to do that. Like he has I think he has a Hall of Fame career. I do, just because the trophy case is very impressive, and he's got 2 Olympic gold medals. He's got a World Junior gold medal.
I was going to say, Phil, I don't think there's a think about it. I think he's in.
It just the offensive numbers just aren't there. That's the
Selke, Conn Smythe.
Selke, Conn Smythe, 3 Stanley Cups. He was a part of the 100th anniversary team. He has a Messier Award, which, I mean, I don't know how much stock you really put into that, but it is a part of a trophy case. 883 points in 1,067 games, regarded as one of the better two-way players of the last 30, 40 years, if you will. But internationally, he's got a hell of a career too. Like I think he gets in. So I just think that why would you come back with that resume? Like, what do you need to prove to yourself?
You got guys that they want to just play until they have to rip the jersey off your back.
Oh, he's got a Canada Cup and world championship gold as well. I mean, I'm pretty sure he's a part of the triple gold club.
I mean, he's sort of hockey's Tom Brady, if you want to say, from the first half of his career, before Brady started putting up all the greatest numbers ever. But I also can't help just look at it. I'm just also looking at him and going, I like Jonathan Toews a lot. Great player. How the hell was he on the 100th anniversary team? And Henrik Lundqvist, Evgeny Malkin, Rod Gilbert was.
Whoa!
Just
wow. I've heard concerns about Owen Power, but I did not think that this was the case.
Yeah, he said it on the DFO rundown.
Wow.
Okay.
If that's the case, how is Kevin Adams still employed?
Keandre Miller for Owen Power right now.
Yeah.
And I'll take the salary increase and deal with Owen Power and maybe he doesn't live up to $8 million, but at least I know if I'm dealing Power for Miller and trying to figure out whether or not, and the Rangers probably have to add, to be honest, but at least I know that I have a defenseman that has it up here, that has room to grow. Keandre Miller could turn into Owen Power for all we know.
Yeah, with the right defensive coach.
Does it in New York.
Yeah, and if that happened, I wonder how Tage Thompson would. I mean, at that point, you might as well do a full-on rebuild. But that's the one guy.
Blow it up again in Buffalo?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Oh man. I mean, that's when you have to have the fans coming in with the sell the team signs and chants.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
wow,
that's really what it comes down to.
And again, I just keep going back to the words. How often can you keep rebuilding in Buffalo? Like, just this is unthinkable. This is absolutely if that's the case, Kevin Adams has to go. You need this is I wouldn't be shocked. They talked about this earlier, guys. Remember the rumors about Lou going there? Lou goes in there, establishes a new organization, and gets things right. That's what they would need there. Like, just
imagine that's
wow.
who
Anthony, who says no?
Yeah, who says no? I'd say
Buffalo says no.
Yeah,
Unless
just 'cause
Thompson
durability.
specifically says he wants out.
Yeah. I would do bad things for Tage Thompson. He's a phenomenal player.
I would not. I personally would not trade Tage Thompson for Jack Hughes. I don't. I think Jack Hughes is just injury prone. I think he might be too small to play center. I think he's injury prone. I think he's a very good player, but I have definitely concerns about whether or not his health holds up throughout the rest of this deal at the very least.
Yeah, he's got to add on some muscle.
Yeah, I don't see how he survives because I feel like every time he takes like a decent hit, he's hurt. And
and even though the last one was more accidental, still it's like
I mean, all right. So on my Sunday morning skate, there's an older guy that took a seemingly innocuous collision. Not really anything nasty by any means. Didn't look nasty at all. It was an accidental collision, and he broke a couple of ribs on the fall. And again, it's an older guy, but it's like when you're that small, because he's small. When you're that small and you take that type of collision, you don't have the mass to help out. I mean, you're going to be relatively fragile. Like LaFontaine weighed more than Hughes, and LaFontaine, the issue was the concussions. I started this because I saw this earlier. Depends on the moves, really. Depends on.
Did you click out of that? Because I had that up, but
I clicked. Sorry, I clicked out of it.
I unstarted. I'm sorry.
I clicked out of it, because you unstarted it. But Jacob, to really answer the question, I mean, it depends on the moves that they make. I don't really know if you can say anything as of right now because where did these teams go? Do the Islanders look to rebuild? Do the Rangers? Do they try to move forward? I would imagine the Rangers try to move forward and try to get back to contender status. So if you ask me, I think the Islanders are closer to rebuilding, and I think they, in terms of a rebuilding aspect, they have a little bit of a better future because the Rangers' prospect depth is not really all that good right now. But who's to say anything as of this moment?
I think I have to agree with Nick on this one. At the moment, I think the Islanders have direction. I don't think the Rangers do.
I don't necessarily agree with that because we don't know if the Islanders are necessarily going to continue to go younger.
And
we don't do they move out those Lou guys? If they move out those Lou guys, then yes, I would agree. But the Rangers they're looking to probably get back to being a contender. So I don't know if that you can't say that's not a direction. That's their going forward. But they're trying to retool the roster on the fly and get to be closer to what Florida is than what the Rangers were this season.
Probably
this was Lafreniere.
Yeah, for Marco Rossi.
Lafreniere. I would do that. I would do it. Same draft year. I think it fits more of a positional need. I think you get a legitimate top 6 center in Marco Rossi. I think Marco Rossi is not a bad defensive center by any means. I'm not saying he's anywhere close to Selke, but I would say he's at least average in that capacity.
If Marco Rossi is traded, let's say, for Alexei Lafreniere, does that mean Chris Kreider stays a New York Ranger?
No, I think Chris Kreider's gone regardless.
Okay.
I think Chris Kreider, I think the writing's really on the wall for him there. I think they need to move on from him, get what you could get from him now. And, I mean, when you quit on the team last year, that was it. When he took that puck, that was really it. Because I think everyone knew Peter Laviolette was going to get fired. So I don't really think the coaching change really matters. Maybe Sullivan tries to, I don't know, repair the relationship, if you will, just because he seems to have a good one with Chris Kreider. But I don't see how Chris Kreider stays here. I don't. I think they move on from him. And I think they try to move on from Mika Zibanejad as well.
Being pissed at Chris Drury is like being pissed at like the district manager. You're not going to see him that often. So like, what's the point? You could be, he's a guy that's so far up the chain. You don't focus on him. That's where I shake my head about that. So, I actually want to kind of get a couple more. I would love to if we had a couple more Islander questions.
Yeah. Well, whatever comes in, comes in.
Yeah. Well, we'll go for another 10 minutes because I don't think we're gonna have Anthony back for a while. But I mean, if the Rangers end up trading Alexei Lafreniere, they need to just never ever draft again. That's the way I kind of feel. Like they didn't draft this guy and develop him. Or Kako. Like just, and I know it's not the most.
Yeah, but Chris Drury didn't draft him though.
Chris Drury didn't draft him, but Jeff Gorton did, and there was clearly no plan. And the veterans clearly have to play the power play time. None of them wanted to take a back seat at all. None of them wanted to help develop these guys. You gave them minutes of ice time. How many teams draft 1 and 2 overall? They play less than 15 minutes a game. And then the stupid statement, absolutely stupid, of oh, well, they got to earn their ice time. Shut up. It's an investment to take them to begin with.
Yeah.
You have to invest.
The player development here has been horrible, and you need to get rid of guys like Tanner Glass and Jed Ortmeyer and Mark Stahl in these positions. They're just because, again, I've said this so many times, and I'll say it again, just because they were plugs at the NHL level or not, skilled players. How do they earn it when they don't get? That's really what it comes down to.
Yeah.
Like, how can they earn it? Or how do they earn it when Capo Caco goes out there and puts up a goal and assist against Calgary and David Quinn benches him for a borderline penalty that shouldn't even been called on him?
And then they put their eggs in the Ryan Strome basket. Good for you.
The issue I have is you have two guys that you want to go out there and you want to give time to, and they don't give them the time. And not only that, but the power play has struggled at several points. I mean, 2020, the power play was great. They were top 5 in the league for a majority of the year. I think they finished 6th. 2024, power play was great. But 2022, 2023, 2025, like, there were many times throughout those 3 years where the power play was complete shit. And they made 0 adjustments to it. They kept the same guys in the same positions and expected different results. Why was Alexei Lafreniere not out on power play 1 on the right-hand side boards as a left-hand shot? You ever see how Tampa sets up their power play? Stamkos and Kucherov, off-handed one-timers on the left and right boards.
Mm-hmm. Hey, Phil, let me ask you a question.
One-timer. Braden Point, bumper spot. Any other forward you want to put on Tampa Bay, down low. Victor Hedman, point. And you cannot continue to run these terrible personnel units out there and just keep the same guys out there doing the same damn things over and over again and expecting different results. Put the young kids out there and let them see what they can do.
Phil, really quick, rank these guys in order of their average time on ice. You ready?
Okay.
Capo Caco, Colin Blackwell, Philip Hedel, Alexei Lafreniere. This is Lafreniere's rookie season. This is the shortened COVID year.
Oh, so this is 2020, 2021.
Mm-hmm.
I know for one is Colin Blackwell.
He's
know
2. He's actually 2.
Okay.
He's at 14 minutes a game.
He was 2. Wow, because he was playing top 6 minutes with Panarin and Strome that year.
Right, and I think a lot of this is affected by earlier in the season because I'll give you number 1 is Kako. Now Lafreniere and Hedel.
Hedel 3, Lafreniere 4.
Lafreniere 3, Hedel 4. 15-53 versus 13-14 for Hedel. Like, that just shows you had Colin Blackwell playing 14 minutes a game. And I'm pretty sure if I went over his minutes played per game.
That's what happens when you have a coach fighting for his job. They do dumb shit like that.
Yeah.
I mean, and Quinn got fired not only because of the results, but because he was being an idiot. But when you brought in a coach, what they should have done at that point was brought in a coach that was going to be able to develop players. Gallant couldn't develop players. He was sticking Dryden Hunt in the top 6 in 21-22. Like, what are you doing? Like, I mean, they abandoned every single thing they could have abandoned when it came to development. And just,
Yeah, by the way, he averaged 14.5 minutes per game after the first game that he had over 14 minutes. Oh, I'm sorry. He had a 15-minute game, too, before that. So, good for you. That's one way to – you're developing Colin Blackwell. You're not developing a number 1 overall draft pick. So, I mean, that's just – yeah. So, in any event.
I mean, to be fair, Johnny's right about this. I mean, you kind of abandoned the rebuild the minute you signed Panarin and then you traded for Trouba. It was a farce rebuild. So
yeah, the letter was a lie. I've said this numerous times.
Yeah.
And it was done by fools.
Here's the issue. Quinn actually couldn't coach younger players. He got to a national championship game with BU with a stacked roster and lost. It's as simple as that. He couldn't win with Jack Eichel. And Jack Eichel is one of the great. If you put down a list of the top 10 NCAA talents, Jack Eichel is going to be right near the top. Probably just outside of Paul Kariya, who's probably the best one we've ever seen in the NCAA. Put up a 100-point season in Maine.
Colin Blackwell's best offensive season was his year on the line with Panarin and Strome. He had 12 goals. He had 10 between Seattle and Toronto, and he has yet to get over 8 in any other location after that. This is who we were. I mean, come on. This is like John Muckler level of development with the New York Rangers, throwing Manny Malhotra onto the bus.
Yeah, we talked about this on when we did the stream yesterday about the trade board from Frank Saravalli. And Chris Johnston just did his, and he's also on there. I think Johnston had Keandre Miller at 7, I believe, as opposed to 10. I absolutely believe Keandre Miller's name is out there. I mean, I think that he might want a big. No worries. It's there if you want to watch it again.
Yeah, go ahead.
But
we're on demand.
Yeah. But yeah, I think it's just they might not want to give him that big deal for the same reasons that I've said. I think it's up here with him, and I think he may need to go somewhere else to figure it out. I think they understand this, and it's a combination of that, and I think he may want that big deal, and they just might not want to give it, and they're okay with moving him if it means that. But I think it's going to cost. I think it's going to cost more than something to move him.
All right, guys, we're going to finish it up in about 7 minutes. I'll start playing bye-bye in about the next 2. Phil, it's a disappointment because he always was a project. And speaking about which, he's another guy that they fast-tracked in this way. He ended up being on the second pairing, and you just haven't seen that growth. And the other thing is, I think Jacob Trouba inhibited that growth for a while.
Jacob Trouba inhibits a lot of things.
Yeah.
Terrible player, terrible captain.
I mean, I didn't see that leadership other than the helmet throw game that everybody wants to point to. Oh, the helmet throw game. There was so much passion. It isn't just a matter of going and getting your ass kicked and then throwing your helmet.
Yeah, I'm not. I think he was a terrible captain. I never saw any of it. I never saw where he gets where anything that he did to show any type of leadership. And then his play was just erratic and just kind of stupid at times. Like I just thought he was a terrible option for captain. I didn't think they had a captain. I'm with Evan. I said several times I just didn't think that the captain was on this roster.
They didn't.
And
I was one person, Phil. I just said name a damn captain, and then they couldn't. They couldn't even name a captain.
I don't think there's one on the roster right now. I think everyone looks at JT Miller and how he tried to come in. I mean, I'm not even sure JT Miller is a great choice to be a captain.
I do not like him as a captain now.
I can understand why people don't like him as a captain. He might be the best option, but does that mean he's a good option?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I agree. I don't know if I agree with the idea that him being the best option means that they should name him a captain. I do agree that they need a captain, but I don't know if there's one on the roster right now.
I'll also say right there, there's no chance Jimmy Vesey comes back.
No.
Very little chance Ryan Lindgren comes back. There might be a chance Brock Nelson would come back to the Islanders, but that's just a chance. I think he's gonna have such a big contract offers. I don't think the Islanders are gonna want to take the risk on him.
Yeah, I thought Winnipeg would have been a real good spot for Nelson, but apparently he blocked a trade to Winnipeg. So he might not want to go there. And that really. Yeah.
Which Nyquist made a video about that just now.
Yeah.
But if I was, again, I repeat, if I was Kevin Cheveldayoff, I would have been like, dude, you could be the missing piece for us. Hard to argue with him picking Colorado, though, for 2 reasons. One, he ended up on a really good team that just lost to a better one. They really reshaped their center depth at the deadline with him and Charlie Coyle getting there. And then, then it was the return for the Islanders. I mean, you could argue it was better return to get Callum Ritchie and the first round pick. They probably would have gotten. You guys have said this. What were the prospect you said likely would have been gone from Winnipeg in that deal?
Probably Rutger McGroarty.
Okay.
If Callum Ritchie is the one that went, I'd imagine Rutger McGroarty would be the one that would have went.
Who was the one that Rutger McGroarty was traded for?
He was traded for Brandon Yager to Pittsburgh.
That's it. Thank you.
Brandon Yager. Sorry. It's Yager that's pronounced. It's Yager, but it's pronounced Yager.
Sure.
Yager.
Yeah, we got 5 more minutes. We're going to start the song right now, guys.
He knows what 5 more minutes means. They got hockey time.
I know.
That's why he's saying that.
And as David's saying right here, I'm not sure if Miller has been kicked out of the last 3 locker rooms.
Yeah, I think that's I think you're kind of a reach there by making that claim.
Well, obviously there was friction in Vancouver. I don't think that there was friction exactly in and actually, by the way, Phil, me and my beautiful wife, we sat down, we watched my cousin Vinny 2 weeks ago. What a great movie. I that's one of those movies that when you look at and you just watch it, it truly is. And people neglect how good of a movie it is. And I'm not just talking about the performances of everybody in that movie, from Joe Pesci, Marissa Tomei, Fred Gwynn, who was amazing as the judge, but even Lane Smith, who was the prosecutor, and down to the other guys. But even the writing of it, the writing in every single scene basically affected the rest of the movie. Like, it affected the case, just little things like him dropping his suit. It was just, it's one of the perfect movies that are out there.
Okay.
And would you like me to explain? I would love to hear this. Well, fortunately, that one's always on cable. So,
it's not like Scarface where you rarely ever find it on cable.
Yeah, there's a bunch of movies you can always find that are on cable, or even on demand. I always love seeing The Hunt for Red October every time it was on. But we're cord cutters, and it's always on Hulu, basically most of the stuff. So it's where the benefit is. And then if you don't have it, just go get it. I think there was hold on.
You probably actually get it on YouTube as well. Like if you search it on YouTube, I think the option will come up to buy or rent it. And there's a lot of free movies on YouTube too. You go on YouTube.
Yeah. Quiz Show's a good one. Yeah, that was identical. And of course, by the way, just knowing the Pontiac Tempest could be confused for the Buick Skylark. That's always one of the better moments in there. There was so much. Again, when I talk about just moments of that movie, has to be. Would you say the two Utes? What is a Ute? Oh, I'm sorry, the two Utes. And then we walks back over to Maury Chaykin and says, "Would you say that the two defendants?" And the glare he just gets Fred with. It's so great. Let It Ride. I believe Let It Ride is that Richard Dreyfuss? That was always a good one. I had one. I had a series I was trying to start here called Ice Camera Action. I'll have to go over more movies that dealt with hockey players. I always mention this. Not a lot of people know that John Wayne played a hockey player in a movie. John Turturro, yep. John Turturro, one of the best character actors that there is out there. Period. Like, one of the worst things he ever did was the Transformers franchise. But yeah, this is
Pino and Do the Right Thing.
Yeah. Do the Right Thing. Talk about him and Giancarlo Esposito.
Giancarlo Esposito is bugging out.
Which I love Giancarlo Esposito, although my favorite was
Dennis Haysbert. I think he played. Dennis Haysbert was in Shield. Who played Radio Raheem in that? Jeez, I forget his name.
I think Danny Aiello was nominated for an Oscar on that.
Yes, Danny Aiello was nominated in that one.
Yeah, that was back when stuff like that actually meant things.
Who was Radio Raheem? Because he was in a bunch of stuff too.
And now we're down to the sure about the 5 minutes.
Bill Nunn. Yeah, that he was in.
Bill Nunn.
He was in Spider-Man 3.
Bill Nunn, great. Spider-Man 2 as well, and Spider-Man 1.
Yeah.
I always remember him from Regarding Henry, if you
Yeah.
remember that old movie.
Yeah, he was in that. That was 1991.
Yeah. He passed away, I want to say it was like the early 2000s, 2010s. Or it was like right after Spider-Man.
No, 2016.
Yeah. No. He was another good one. So it's good that we finally got the wrap-up show done. I would have loved if we had a guest for this.
Yeah, same. I would love to get more Islanders guests. And
Rounders, we've used Rounders on this show. We've had as far as the clip goes. A matter of fact, it was the John Turturro clip that we used.
Yes,
of Jacob Trouba and
it was the money.
Yeah,
it was the money clip when Mike goes to Kanish and asks him for more money, and Kanish tells him no, and tells him about angling and playing for keeps, and then that's when Mike tells him about the time that he bluffed out Johnny Chan in Atlantic City.
That's why he made the run over at KGB's place.
Yeah.
But by the way, I don't think the Knicks lose tonight. I think the Knicks do extend the series to 6 because I did say we were talking about the series that it was you can't have the home team lose every single game. The Knicks are going to win tonight. Come on. There's no chance of happening.
It's gotta happen. It's gotta be a win.
And then they got to find a way to win game 6 and move on. So that's what the hard part is. I mean, look, also part of me wants them to win, but also part of me is a little bit jealous of them right now because I wanted the other Garden team to be more successful this year, and it's just not going to happen. But the Pacers have been their Florida Panthers. They came in, they shocked the Knicks. Everybody thought the series was going to be so easy until 2 minutes remaining in that first game. So that's kind of it on that. All right, guys. Thanks everybody for watching the stream today. It was great to finally do this Islander stream. Islander fans that are still watching, once again, I do think this team has a little bit more potential right now than their crosstown rivals. So just rebuild this team or even just retool. I feel like I think the Islanders need to retool now, thanks to that number 1 overall draft pick. So we will see about that. All right. And also I have to get another line to say when I just have nothing in my head. All right. I've been doing a lot of we'll see about that. All right, guys. Thank you very much. And we will see you in the next one, possibly as early as tomorrow morning, because we really need to keep doing all these all the time. I'll see you guys soon. And let's see who wins the Western Conference Final tonight.